Hi everyone, Sean Walbin with Secure Cyber Defense, and this is a special report on the Safe Drinking Water Act 1433 that's been making the news lately with the EPA. So SDWA 1433 has been around for quite a while. Originally, after 9/11, it was developed to basically assist water utilities with preparing for anti-terrorism attacks and those types of things. Over time, this has escalated to the point where we're trying to get a lot of cybersecurity concentration on especially smaller water operators inside the US, and there are a number of them. So we have a report from the EPA that has come out that said since last September, of the number of utilities that they assessed, 70% of them had critical vulnerabilities that needed to be addressed. Now, we've reported on this channel quite a bit that there has been a lot of water and wastewater attacks lately by China, Iran, Russia, and we've even reported a little bit on Volt Typhoon, which is a Chinese hacker group that has started to embed themselves inside U.S. critical infrastructure in order to potentially become alive or interrupt our critical infrastructure should China and Taiwan go to a dispute. So basically, the SDWA 1433 alert that came out from the EPA is just a reminder and an alert to smaller utilities that they need to comply with this. And some of the important things that are inside this particular area of the EPA rule, the 1433, is the mandate that water operators need to develop incident response plans or emergency response plans and produce risk assessments every 5 years. Now, I think every 5 years is a little long, and I'm hoping that over time, the EPA can introduce new guidelines or more stricter guidelines. They actually tried to do this about a year ago, and then they were actually sued by a number of organizations that support smaller operators, and they weren't able to actually get some of those more stringent cybersecurity standards through. So this is what we're seeing today. We're seeing the alert come out about SDWA 1433, and I think a lot of people are looking at that and going, that the EPA just now came out with these new guidelines. These guidelines have been out, like I said, since 2002. The SWDA has been out. So some of the things that CISA has brought to light and the EPA is trying to grab onto as well to encourage smaller water operators, and we'll go through some of these on the list. These are some of the action items or some of the things that water operators can do to be more secure. One of the most primary ones is to, of course, reduce exposure to the public internet. And what they're talking about here is water system control systems being publicly exposed to the internet. So we did report recently about Muleshoe, Texas. Back in January, a hacker group got a hold of a water system in Muleshoe and actually was able to successfully get a water tower the ability to overflow. Now, what we've started to see over time is this escalation of hacker groups that are getting access specifically to water systems and causing damage. So some of the things that can happen if a hacker gets a hold of a water or a wastewater system, certainly they can interrupt the flow of water. So by draining water towers or causing them to overflow, you can potentially interrupt the pressure inside the water system itself. So you could cause like low pressure type systems, hacker groups that get a hold of control systems that handle the chemical compounds and the chemical balance of the water system. They can certainly potentially do that and cause harm. So there's a lot of disruption that can occur from the water making process as well as the water treatment process. But, and you may think that, well, why in the world would somebody have their infrastructure exposed to the internet in the first place? And I know when we've reported on this previously, we've gotten some questions about that. And what we're seeing is just over time, these systems did used to be completely isolated systems, completely air-gapped, if you will, separate from the internet, no connection, and you either had to physically go to the plant or there was like some secure way to dial in and make changes and those types of things. Well, with the evolution of the internet and with the over time, the world losing a lot of that expertise of folks that have that knowledge to maintain control systems, a lot of operators have had to expose certain areas of their system in order to get remote access help to come in and help diagnose issues, make changes to the system, those types of things. So what has happened, though, is that when these operators have exposed their systems, they haven't gone through the proper process of making it done in a secure way. So what that has done over time is now we've seen that we have control systems that are improperly exposed. We've got systems that have default passwords that are exposed. We've got systems that are improperly exposed, have default passwords, and have vulnerabilities. So a number of these control systems have updates that have to happen, just like your Windows computer on your desktop has security updates and Windows updates and those types of things. Control systems also have updates that come out as well. However, what we have found over time is that a lot of these control systems are not updated, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of operators have this false sense of security of thinking, well, I am an isolated system. I'm not exposed to the internet. I don't have these vulnerabilities, critical vulnerabilities, so I don't need to patch because nobody can get to my system. And really, for the most part, that couldn't be farther from the truth. And I think that has a lot to do, well, I say that because I have personally seen this in some of the water systems that we've evaluated. But certainly now the EPA is actually reporting that as well. And those 70% of the systems that they've evaluated have also had improper exposures. So CISA has come out with a document basically for water operators. We'll go through this real quick. So reducing exposure to public-facing internet systems, conducting regular cybersecurity assessments. That means on a regular basis, like maybe every 6 months to a year, getting into your environment, into your water and wastewater system and looking at the setup. Have there been any changes? Have there been any changes to remote access and those types of things? Changing default passwords immediately. So any control system that has a default password, changing those passwords. Conducting an inventory of your OT assets, of your operational technology assets inside the water and wastewater plant. I have personally found that almost 100% of the operators that we've visited have no inventory and have no idea of the exact systems that they have inside their environment. And that becomes a problem, especially when you're trying to work through vulnerabilities. You won't know what to look for. So you'll see a bulletin come out for a vulnerability, and your first question will be, well, I don't know if we have that system in place. So you should be intimately familiar with your assets inside of your water and wastewater plant. And then develop an exercise for a cyber incident response plan and a recovery plan. So how will you have to operate your plant manually? How long will that happen? We've had instances where due to certain events that plants have to be manned 24/7, 365, and sometimes that's not a normal thing, especially for smaller operators. And then backing up your OT systems. So if a system was to become compromised or a control system become compromised, do you have all the proper backups? Do you have backup equipment? Do you have backup PLCs? Do you have a good vendor on standby? All of those types of things in a cyber emergency are extremely important. And then one of the last things I'd mention is just conducting like regular cybersecurity awareness. We have a very robust system that we use with a product called Cywareness that has a number of modules in there to educate staff on security threats and how to mitigate them and how to look out for them. So that's the SDWA 1433. I just wanted to go over that. It's made the news a lot lately. And as I've promised on this channel, I want to bring awareness to a lot that's going on in critical infrastructure. Certainly, the U.S. is seeing an increase in attacks to our water system and our wastewater system as well. So we'll continue to bring this information to you. Put any comments in the in the notes below in the comments. Any questions that you might have, we're happy to answer those on the air or off the air. We do a pretty good job, I think, of trying to address all the questions that happen. So be interactive, like and subscribe the channel, and I appreciate your time today. And hey, let's be careful out there.